Step closer. Today, the sea will reveal its buried nightmares and wonders. Are you ready to journey where sunlight dies and only questions remain? What you find here, you'll never forget, and you may never sleep soundly again. The second Great Barrier Reef, the drowned rings beneath. A claustrophobic twilight wrapped around the dive team as they plunged beyond the sunlit shallows of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. The only sound, their breathing, echoing louder with each meter as shifting blotches of green faded to dim limestone shadows. 46 meters down, their flashlights revealed a field of bizarre, pale rings, donut-shaped mesas rising ghost-like from a greenish, silent desert. Their submersible sensors pinged off layer after layer of fossilized algae, Holymeta, dead for millennia, stacked 20 meters thick like bones beneath forgotten soil. One diver, a veteran marine biologist, waited for her eyes to adjust, expecting the familiar forest of living coral. Instead, the view was lunar, almost alien. Scientific expedition journals later described a hush so crushing that even whispers about the living Holymeta turned to nervous laughter. No diver could agree on what they'd truly seen. Some swore the rings glimmered green at their edges, as if something alive still thrummed below the chalk. Intrigued, a team of geneticists lowered sample collectors, intent on finding modern DNA. But every test returned inconclusive. Were the algae centuries dead or only sleeping? At the edges of the rings, divers felt a bone-deep cold, not in the water, but in their minds, as if some memory haunted the structure itself. Those who dived deepest reported a strange sensation. Something unseen, older than human history, seemed to shift in the silt, beckoning but never revealing itself. The greatest reef in the world, it turned out, was merely a mask. Something else waited beneath, and no one could say whether the seafloor had finished changing or was only beginning. Even today, the underwater rings remain unsolved, alive in some places, dead in others, and always waiting for another diver to vanish into their haunted depths. Gondwana's Islands, the ghost continents below. Thunderheads flickered on the horizon as the research vessel drifted over the restless Indian Ocean. At 1.5 kilometers below, sonar revealed twin silhouettes hidden beneath endless blue, a pair of drowned islands almost the size of Tasmania, utterly unknown until that moment. The air on deck went tense as geologists studied the readouts. No islands should exist here. This was supposed to be abyssal plain, a graveyard of black basalt, lifeless and ancient. A deep-sea drone slid into the water, whirring through the silent dark, its cameras sweeping over cliff faces traced with the fossilized outlines of impossible leaves and shells. The samples pulled up were not ordinary ocean rock, but bone-dry continental stone, remnants of an age older than every nation on Earth. Fossils of unknown creatures, once buried deep within Gondwana, now lay exposed, cabinets cracked open by tectonic doom. Records from the expedition described geophysicists who didn't sleep for days, haunted by the realization. These were fragments of Earth's earliest supercontinent, severed during the catastrophic divorce of India from Australia. Analysis revealed pollen grains and stones found nowhere else in the modern world, proof that these islands were once the green valleys binding worlds together, obliterated by continental drift. But as the days stretched on, instruments failed. Strange readings appeared on seismic monitors, whispers from the deep tremors that spoke of movement beneath the plain. The locals, longtime fishermen, muttered of night-shrouded waves and a hum that came from nowhere. Some began to believe the drowned continents were waking. Today, the microcontinents remain half-mapped, their mystery deepening as experts debate whether new plates are still moving below. The world's continents were never properly split. They only drift apart, held together by memories and bones in the dark. And something, scientists warn, may soon tug them back together. The Caribbean whistle, the sea that sings in A-flat. Night after night, satellites passing above the Caribbean Sea returned strange data, a persistent, ghostly vibration, too low for human ears, but resonating across 1 million square miles in the key of A-flat. On a humid night near Guadeloupe, fishermen claimed to sense a slow, invisible pulse, a trembling beneath the hull. The sea is singing, They whispered, their faces tense, but not for us. The phenomenon began with a chain reaction far below the light, titanic Rossby waves, swirling in ways even oceanographers could not predict, twisting the heat and salt until the whole basin vibrated like a haunted bell. Every 120 days, a monstrous current would travel silently from east to west and back again, a loop that none could see, but all would feel in the wrecked sleep and shivering bone. Scientists launched probes, trying to listen. They picked up the eerie tone echoing through liquid dark, a whistle so deep it shifted the planet's gravitational field, pinging off satellites hundreds of miles above. Impossible, one physicist muttered. Reviewing the data at 4 a.m., the ocean itself has found a voice. But whenever expeditions tried to trace the wave to its source, storms would surge and equipment would short-circuit. Remote submersibles sent their own warnings: pressure anomalies, unexpected turbulence. Some researchers reported headaches, a pressure at the base of the skull they could never shake. Theories abounded: something ancient in the deep, a force that twisted water and time, the earth flexing old wounds. Yet the whistle remains unexplained, the ocean's lullaby churning in the abyss, ignored by all but those who know to listen. Even today, satellites shudder as they cross the Caribbean's heartbeat, a tone that never fades, never reveals its purpose, and may outlast humankind. The underwater waterfall, where the ocean plummets into darkness. Down where currents collide in the Atlantic South Equatorial, scientists lowered their deep-sea observatory and stared into the bottomless blue. Sensors screamed. The ocean floor dropped away, exposing an abyss where no light survived. Suddenly, their cameras caught it. A miles-long torrent of water, plunging with terrifying force, vanishing beneath the sea itself. It moved with the fury of a hurricane, but with silence so profound, one diver later said it felt like God holding his breath. The falls dropped farther than Niagara, their immense body split by invisible boundaries where one current pressed, colder, against another swifter and hotter. Out of nowhere, waves, monstrous and glass-like, formed without warning, curling hundreds of feet high within the liquid chasm. Each giant crest loomed over the submersible, glimmering like knives in the flickering beam of the spotlights. Marine physicists, eyes wide, watched in awe as 250 Kelvin Helmholtz waves thundered past without ceasing, each more threatening than the last. The phenomenon was like nothing ever measured on Earth, except, perhaps, in the swirling gas storms of Saturn. "We don't belong here," whispered the hydrodynamicist, as the yawning drop threatened to swallow their equipment whole. During one dive, the communications link went dead for 5 agonizing hours. When the submersible surfaced, the crew described flashing after images of the great waves even with eyes closed, and the memory of a whisper, almost a song, echoing through the vents. To this day, the underwater waterfall pulses on, shrouded by a force as old as the continents. Those who seek to trespass on its abyss risk being dragged down, swallowed by the surge, and spit out on a shore that does not exist. An exploded star, when cosmic dust seeded the ocean floor. Pacific dawn broke foggy as the drill ship's crew worked in uneasy silence. From the deep came up strange, glassy mud, heavy with microscopic bones of magnetic bacteria. It was routine until the onboard spectrometer shrieked. Iron, 60, elemental ghost, forged only in the hellish death of supernovae, sparked in the sediment, trapped in the husks of ancient microbes that swarmed the seafloor 2.7 million years ago. Team leader Dr. Gunther stared at the readings, knuckles white. This iron was radioactive. Not old, young, by cosmic standards. The scientists clambered below decks, poring over maps and dust, piecing together the pattern. Long ago, a flood of alien debris had reigned for nearly 1 million years, seeding the Pacific with stardust, reshaping the planet's chemistry. One geobiologist described nightmares after studying the samples. Visions of the sky on fire, the sea glowing with unfamiliar life, the smell of metal sharp in the air. Colleagues joked about stellar bacteria, but late at night, some whispered of messages from the dead star. None can explain how the bacteria survived, or even thrived, in the presence of the supernova's iron. What else arrived from beyond the sun? What invisible hand still stirs the world's oceans from above? Years have passed, But the cosmic signature remains, hidden in silt, muting compasses and haunting those who know where to look. The ocean is not just our planet's mirror. It is a crypt, seeded by the debris of dying stars. No one knows what else might be buried, or waiting for another cosmic rain. The missing crust, a hole in the Atlantic abyss. At 5 kilometers below the Atlantic, off the invisible line between the Caribbean and Cape Verde, the deep-sea robot ROV Orpheus went silent. The next transmission sketched out a nightmare. Where there should have been solid crust, 7 kilometers thick, was empty, a void spanning thousands of square kilometers. Lights flickered over polished serpentinite, green-black, oily, as if freshly wounded by unseen trauma. Scientists on the surface shared a chill. Something was wrong, fundamentally wrong. Geologists studied the serpentinite samples, whispering that such rock only forms when seawater reacts directly with the mantle. A secret handshake meant to be impossible where crust shields the Earth. No seismograph had hinted at this rift. No tectonic model predicted its presence. There were no eggshell fractures, just a ragged hole where the world's skin had been ripped away and never healed. Descent teams fumbled with instruments as magnetic anomalies pulsed, and several reported vertigo, nosebleeds, or a persistent sense of falling. It feels like being on the inside of a wound. One engineer wrote in her log, refusing thereafter to set foot on deck at night. Speculation ran rampant. Was the rift a scar from the tearing of ancient Pangaea? Evidence pointed only to trauma. No fresh crust was growing, no magma rising. The Earth, here, had not bothered to heal. To this day, the missing crust has inspired a dread among geologists. Proof not that our theories are incomplete, but that some wounds in the planet are so deep, even time cannot mend them. Every vessel that passes over the void reports a shudder, a headache, a sense that the void below is waiting once again to devour something whole. The end of the Atlantic, a future catastrophe waiting beneath. In the moonlit waters off Portugal, instruments began tipping into chaos. Somewhere, 200 kilometers offshore, a fracture line had opened, an embryonic subduction zone, a crack in the Eurasian plate whispering promises of destruction. Seismologists gathered night after night in cluttered labs, staring at maps lit by red emergency lamps. The data told a mad story. The continents were awakening, the ancient machinery beneath our feet shifting once more. The news spread. This fracture was the start of a process that, in less than a blink by geological standards, would close the Atlantic forever, slamming North America and Europe together. The mountains that would rise would dwarf the Alps, the Mediterranean would choke and vanish, and the world would be reshaped by a darkness under the sea. Teams dropped ROVs into the midnight water, hoping for answers but retrieving only echoing tremors, the sound of plates straining against each other, a low, relentless grind, like a voice gnashing its teeth in the rock. In the taverns of Lisbon and the windswept Azores, fishers and old sailors muttered that the sea had changed. They spoke of feeling watched, that the wind's howl carried messages from the deep. Geologists lost sleep, convinced they'd glimpsed the slow unfurling of apocalypse. And as sensors ticked down the microshifts, everyone wondered what secrets lay inside the growing wound. The end of the Atlantic is no longer just a theory. It is echoing deep below, in the invisible dark, promising an end that no living soul will ever see, yet every species may someday feel. TMU Massif, the sleeping colossus beneath. A Japanese survey ship drifted in restless waters above the Pacific, just east of Japan. The deep-sea echo sounders hummed, shadows thickened on the screens. Then, abruptly, the ocean floor seemed to yawn open, revealing contours wider than any known mountain, radiating for 310,000 square kilometers. A tremor fell over the science crew. This was no ordinary seamount. It was TMU Massif, the largest shield volcano on Earth, silent for 145 million years, but never truly dead. Robotic submersibles descended into the eerie blue, their spotlights reaching only the barest edge of the titanic slope. Sensors registered faint pulses, as if the volcano's heart still beat somewhere in the deep. The rock samples, brought up from the seafloor's edge, fizzed with ancient gases and metals found only in the biggest eruptions known to science. One volcanologist confessed later that every night spent above TMU Massif brought dreams of black thunder, of the ocean superheating, of ghostly magma flows flickering on the edge of vision. On occasion, the ship's hull vibrated, a low, impossible tremor. Old sailors murmured it was the Massif itself, drawing breath. Massive as Olympus Mons on Mars, TMU Massif's subterranean foundations disappear nearly 30 kilometers into the Earth. The research teams have mapped only a sliver. The rest remains as unknown as the lunar far side. To this day, TMU Massif rests, its slopes climbing up through pressure and shadow. No one knows if it will ever wake, but the knowledge that Earth's largest volcano lies silent and mostly unmapped in eternal darkness keeps oceanographers on edge, hour after hour, as the sea presses down above. The strange bloom, Arctic plagues that shouldn't exist. A metallic creak shuddered across the hull as the NASA research icebreaker lurched into black Arctic waters. The ice was unyielding, nearly a meter thick, but satellites had shown something was wrong. Something massive growing beneath where no life should take root. Deploying submersibles, the crew soon recoiled. The cameras revealed a milky green cloud writhing under the ice, a bloom of phytoplankton stretching for 116 kilometers, a living plague, doubling its numbers several times per day in a world denied sunlight. The scientists radioed, "Impossible. It should be dead here. Nothing grows under this ice." But the bloom was alive, voracious, defying every textbook. Sensors showed the under-eye sunlight was somehow enough, and perhaps warming had thinned the ancient sheet, letting more light slip through. In the recorded logs, scientists confessed to feeling watched, as if the bloom itself was aware of their intrusion. The bloom's predators, crustaceans, fish, and deadly jelly, had not caught up. The food chain had split. Panic shuddered through biologists. If Arctic blooms arrived earlier each year, migratory animals might starve, their ancient cycles broken by the cold green fire blooming out of season. Each night, as the team tried to sleep, the ship's steel strained and the ice groaned. A few whispered they'd seen the bloom pulsing, growing in the dark whether watched or not. To this day, the Arctic bloom persists, too early, too strong, and the food web shivers with it. No one is sure what wakes next beneath the thinning ice. The sea harbors its mysteries, and some are hungry enough to end life as we know it. Ocean inside Earth, the drowned world below. Seismic sensors deep in North America's crust trembled with a signal so strange it took years to decode. Geologists, their eyes ringed with sleepless resolve, finally mapped the anomaly. A band of rock called ringwoodite, stretching for miles beneath the crust, saturated with water. Not liquid, but locked inside crystalline lattices, enough to flood the continents 3 times over. The discovery came with an edge of fear. If ringwoodite ever released its hidden flood, only the highest mountains would emerge above the New World Sea. For decades, the accepted myth held that Earth's water came from icy comets. But here, staring into the mineral heart of the mantle, scientists faced a new horror. The planet's true water source was homegrown, ancient, and potentially unstoppable. Those who studied the seismic echoes reported uneasy dreams of rising tides, of rivers boiling from the walls, of entire continents drowning in silence. For a moment, Earth's skin felt dangerously thin, just a membrane holding back the old world, waiting for a wound to let it spill forth. Even now, the subterranean ocean churns in secret, locked between the world's bones. The fear lingers. What if one day, a quake, a slip, or human folly unlocks the flood? The secrets beneath our feet remain unsolved. The greatest ocean on Earth is hidden, watching, patient as the mountains. And in the lingering tremor of every tectonic shift, a whisper, the drowned world remembers and waits. Feel free to leave your comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more mysteries like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.